Gentlelady from Washington is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will report the amendment. Point of order reserved by the gentleman from Arizona.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature of a substitute.
The amendment will be considered as read. The gentlelady from Washington is recognized to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This has been a bizarre conversation, and it's very difficult to engage with it if you're actually engaged in any kind of reality about what gender-affirming care is and who trans people are. And we've had all kinds of things be said here, words be used. Republicans are bringing yet another despicable bill that attacks the transgender community. And the gentlelady who introduced the bill is calling practices barbaric, but she can't tell us even where the definition she introduced came from. What is barbaric is this legislation. What is barbaric is targeting trans kids in this country who are not doing you any harm. Show me a trans kid who's doing you harm.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so this one's going to get kind of contentious. This comes from a debate they were having over pending legislation, and, you know, it gets wild when Democrats come in with their opinions and their nonsense, and it's going to get kind of crazy. But we're going to go through, we're going to break this down, we're going to analyze what they're talking about. So let's go ahead and get into it, but right quick, y'all do me that favor and smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new around here. Share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. That would be great. If you could also look right below the video and click that join button. Sign up, become a member, help this channel grow and expand. And without any further ado, let's get into it, y'all.
And then tell me how many of you are parents that would do anything that you could to protect your kids and to make sure that they didn't commit suicide, that they were actually able to engage in the world in a healthy way. Tell me what you wouldn't do for your children. Because when you introduce legislation like this, it is not only stupid legislation, it is cruel, it is mean, and it interferes with your own conservative principles. You really want to take away the ability to allow parents to make decisions about their own kids' medical situation with their doctor? That's what Republicans want to do? Now, I know we're all inconsistent in different ways, and there are people on that side who have been consistent on issues of debt and deficit. Both of us on either side of the aisle have taken up issues of privacy. This is a giant inconsistency in the Republican Party right now. You are supposed to be the party of limited government that doesn't get in the way of parents making decisions for their own kids. Remember parental rights? Remember individual rights? But that's not what you're doing. And don't just take it from me. In 2018, when the anti-trans political attacks were beginning, Barbara Comstock, who is a Virginia Republican who served in Congress, many of us knew her, said, quote, "It opens a Pandora's box when you don't allow the parents and the doctors to make this decision." Who are you to get in the way of a parent making a decision about their own kid's health? And, you know, when you talk about, I wrote some things down as you were talking because this whole thing is ridiculous. You want to talk about the industrial medical complex in healthcare? Well, let's talk about that. Why don't we go after those for-profit private insurance companies that have taken over healthcare and made 1 in 3 Americans have medical debt? You want to talk about irreversible psychological damage, another thing that you over there are trying to say about our kids and what we make decisions about? Well, let's talk about cutting nutrition assistance. You want to cut nutrition assistance, $2 a meal from kids who are hungry. That's what your big bad betrayal bill does. You want to talk about irreversible psychological damage? Let's talk about child abuse. Let's talk about separating moms and dads from their kids, immigrants, locking them up indefinitely. That's what you just put in the bill that we voted through the Judiciary Committee. So what the hell are we doing here, Mr. Chairman? Let's be a little consistent and precise and stop attacking trans kids. That's all this does. Now, I do have an amendment here, but it was all, I just have been listening to this and I cannot believe what this conversation has been about. My amendment would allow medical professionals to continue delivering healthcare to young trans people when it is considered a best practice. It recognizes that this care is safe, widely accepted, appropriate, medically necessary, and most importantly, it allows transgender people to live safely and authentically as themselves. Any parent over there, do you want kids to commit suicide? Is that what you'd like? Do you want them to not get the counseling that they need? Because that's what gender affirming care is. In very rare cases, there is surgery that is prescribed. But you guys make it sound like this is some giant, terrible thing that parents are doing for their kids. You're parents. Why are you getting in the way? Why are you letting government get in the way of parents making decisions about their own kids with their own doctors? It is absolutely outrageous, and you should, at a minimum, vote for this amendment. And the chairman is always generous with me because we have spoken about this issue. And he knows damn well what it means to be a parent and to protect your child. And I'm gonna do that every frickin' day that I'm here in this committee when you bring up these ridiculous, barbaric bills that target trans kids.
Now, it's funny, she makes the arguments that this violates conservative principles, doesn't it? But it actually doesn't. And, you know, we could also make the argument from the other direction, because if I remember correctly, you guys on the Democratic side, y'all were on the other side of that issue, and now you're on the opposite side of this one. So the roles are reversed. But the vast difference here is, like, you know, you might ask, oh, what's the limiting factor in this, right? Well, it's morality. This doesn't violate our principles necessarily, right? Because when we get to a certain point, our principles fall away in the face of morality. When you run into that moral wall, yeah, your principles don't mean anything, right? For us, you know, allowing children to go through with these sex change surgeries and all this nonsense is just utter ridiculousness. You're harming the kid. You're going to sterilize the child. It doesn't help. I'm sorry, there's study after study that shows it does not help with the suicidality rates. And the desistance rates on this are upwards of 90% in some cases. They vary. You know, there's been several studies. Some show 60, 70%, and some show upwards of 80 and 90%. So desistance basically is if that, you know, if your child comes out as wants to be trans or whatever, and you tell them no and you do nothing about it, then 90% of the time, up to 90% of the time, they'll just go back to being a normal kid and they'll forget all about it. So, like, you take the numbers on this, you take the, you know, offing themselves numbers, which is upwards of 45%, and then you blast that with the desistance rates, and hang on, we've got a dilemma here, right? Because, once again, the gender-affirming care does not assist at all. The numbers just don't bear it out that it helps with the suicidality. Now, outside of all of that, you know, we don't affirm paranoid schizophrenia, do we? You know, this transgenderism is the only mental disorder that we affirm. That we go ahead and say, yes, you are this, and you will be this, and we push people in that direction. We don't affirm pica, for crying out loud. We don't affirm none of these other DSM-5 mental disorders, for goodness sakes. We do not affirm those. So it's ridiculous to choose and pick this one, pluck it out of the DSM-5, and then say, hey, we're just going to go in this completely opposite direction with this issue right here. Let's just be wild about it, because like I was saying earlier, you know, you're going to sterilize the kid. For one, it doesn't help with anything at all. In most cases, the child will never experience an orgasm, for crying out loud. They're making a decision, right? It's the parents that are making the decision. And they're talking about, oh, you're attacking trans kids. No, we're attacking the parents for making this life-altering decision that kid's life will never be normal. You're ensuring that kid will never be normal at all. They will always be the odd man out. Pun intended. Right? So it's like, what are we doing here in this country? You know, there's another point on this issue where I think they're talking past themselves because they keep putting out gender affirming care or whatever the hell it's called, right? But the specific legislation is legislating the surgery, the last bit of gender affirming care, if you will. Like, we're not trying to legislate away, the psychological help or the hormones or none of that. I don't believe the chemical castration, essentially, and the medical surgery is what they're trying to legislate away. So I think they're talking past each other a lot on this one, because she keeps going off about, gender affirming care. Well, that's a big umbrella term kind of for a lot of different treatments, if you will. So I think that they're arguing past each other on a lot of this. I just wanted to get that point out there, but their arguments to me just don't make any sense. It's morality that we're discussing here. Our morals outweigh the principles in this. Sure, we don't like big government. We don't like government telling us what to do. But however, we would not allow a parent to decide if the child thinks it's a paraplegic or something like that, all of a sudden just comes up one day and says, well, I don't like my arm. It's causing me problems. Can you remove my arm? I don't think we would allow the parent to do that. That's ridiculousness. So it's the same situation in this. We're not going to allow the parent to harm the child. Just like we don't allow if a child wants to eat chocolate cake for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We don't allow kids to do things. Kids have crazy ideas because they're young and they don't know the world. They don't know the destructiveness that they can wrought upon their body, for goodness sakes, by eating chocolate cake and nothing else. So we don't allow them to do that. As a matter of fact, you would probably be thrown in jail if all you did was feed your kids cookies. If they die of malnutrition, that's your fault. It's the parents' fault. So we don't allow for these things. And it's the same with this. We're not going to allow somebody to make a life-altering decision that will damage the rest of their life. And yeah, we'll see it as damage for the rest of their life, because once they become an adult, hey, they're free to do what they want. No Republican is saying that we should not allow people to do what they want once they become adults. It's the children that we're trying to protect here, because the children do not know any better. They can be easily persuaded into thinking they're the opposite gender, for goodness sakes. They can just be easily pushed in that direction. Right? It's kind of a trend that's been going on for a while now. So kids kind of embrace that, and then they go along with it. And then these ridiculous, I almost said something else, these ridiculous parents are like, oh, let's affirm this, blah, 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 and then damage that child for the rest of that child's life. You're going to place your kid in a box that you don't want your child to be in. So all this talk about, we're going and we're attacking trans kids. No, we're attacking the parents who decide to affirm the delusion of the children that have been persuaded to think that they're the opposite sex and want to become the opposite sex. Every once in a while we need a dose of reality, folks. That's all. But, this was a fascinating debate. And if you guys want to see more of this, y'all let me know down in the comments. I'll go ahead and cover the rest of this thing, because it got pretty good. Harriet Hageman, congresswoman from Wyoming. Sorry. She did a pretty good job of articulating her positions on this. So it's pretty good. But y'all let me know if y'all want to see the rest of this. And that is all I've got on this one. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. I'm sure you guys have your opinions. And y'all make sure and check out my next video. We're not talking about war. I'm sorry. Yeah, we are. We've got to. It's just too much going on right now to not discuss it. So y'all make sure and check out my videos. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. Don't forget to smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new around here. Share this video all over the dang place, if you will. I would appreciate that. If you could also look right below the video and click that join button. Why haven't you done that yet, by the way? Come on. What are you doing? But y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.